Hello there. Today we will talk about the procedures related to the customs clearance process and the details of transportation and export. Within this training program, three main subjects will be presented. They are customs clearance procedures, delivery types in foreign trade, in other words, Incoterms, and documents used in foreign trade. Firstly, let's start with the details of customs procedures. Every product entering or leaving a country's customs territory must be subject to customs procedures in accordance with customs legislation. These processes are also called customs clearance. Relevant requirements should be taken into account in the documents prepared for export and should be aligned with the buyer, who is the importer. Export customs clearance procedures vary according to the product and country. Export is an economic activity promoted by states. However, exporters should pay attention to the restrictions and provisions on the export of certain substances. Different countries may have different custom practices for the same product. While performing the product operations, the basic workflow process should be as follows. 1. Finishing the manufacturing of products, packaging, and making them ready for export. 2. Shipping organization, container, reservation, etc. 3. Transport of the container from the place of loading to the factory or delivery of the goods to the warehouses of the carrier or transport of the goods to the port of the loading. 4. Preparation of necessary documents in accordance with the legislation of the exporting country. At this stage, an electronic export declaration must be firstly submitted to the National Customs Office for the EU member state. Each EU country has its own electronic processing system. For small consignments with a value less than €1,000, a verbal statement supported by a shipping document or invoice may suffice. The documents you need to prepare should include invoice and shipping documents and a packing list. You must keep all documents for at least 3 years in case of any checks after export clearance. VAT and export records. When you export abroad, your product is exempt from value-added tax, VAT, provided you keep the export document and export records issued by the Customs Administration. Certificates or licenses. For example, phytosanitary certificates or export licenses for export purposes may also be required. Preparation of customs declarations of consignment via accepted channel will be explained in detail on the next slide. 6. Inspection of documents and/or goods, if necessary, by the Customs Office of the exporting country. 7. Departure of the goods from the customs territory of the exporting country. 8. Closing the transaction within the export customs declaration. EORY number. In order to export, you must have a company, real or legal person officially established within the borders of the country. In summary, you need to get a tax number and be subject to tax. In general, you also need to be registered in your country's trade registry. However, traders established in the customs territory of the European Union must obtain Economic Operators Registration and Identification (EORY) number for customs purposes, for example, to file a customs declaration. In order to obtain the EORY number and become an EU exporter, it is necessary to apply to the authorized customs office. Traders not established in the customs territory of the EU also need an EORY number for different situations. Businesses and individuals who want to trade must use the EORY number as an identification number in all customs transactions when exchanging information with customs administrations. EORY is an EU-wide identification number that will be needed for all customs clearance. Exporters associations. If a company operating in Turkey is to be established and exports are to be made, it is necessary to be a member of at least one of the exporters associations organized under 13 general secretariats affiliated to the Turkish Exporters Assembly, TIM. The union to be a member should be selected according to the shape and qualifications of the product to be exported. In case of becoming a member of any of the unions, the substances that fall into the field of activity of other unions can also be exported without seeking membership. Authorized Economic Operator. Traders located in the EU customs territory, part of the international supply chain and involved in customs-related operations, can apply for Authorized Economic Operator (AEO) status. It's an EU partnership program between the Customs Authority and the Economic Operator (EO) aimed at improving international supply chain security and facilitating legitimate trade. It is based on the Customs to Business Partnership Program introduced by the World Customs Organizations (WCO). AEO status, for example, authorization, is granted by the competent customs authority and recognized by customs authorities in all member states. The AEO authorization is therefore an EU authorization. Although this application is not mandatory, it includes some benefits. Easier admittance in customs clearance, less physical and document-based control, prior notification in case of selection for customs control, prior to treatment if selected for control, possibility to request a specific place for customs checks. There are also indirect benefits such as recognition as a secure business partner, improved relations with customs and other government officials, fewer delayed shipments, lower inspection costs, and increased cooperation. To register as an authorized economic operator, it is necessary to obtain an EORY number from the customs office of the EU country where the business is established. Then apply to the competent customs office where the main customs accounts are accessible. And finally, submit the application online via the EU Trader portal. RAC system. If you want to export to a country that is among the EU preferential trade agreements and benefit from lower tariffs, you must apply for Authorized Exporter (EA) status or Registered Exporter (REX) status according to the trade agreement. EA is enforced at your national customs office, while REX is administered through your national customs office. The REX system is a special case of invoice declaration based on the principle of self-validation by economic operators issuing so-called Statement on Origin documents. A statement on origin is a declaration of origin attached to an invoice or any other commercial documents by the registered exporter. To be entitled to a statement on origin, economic operators must be registered in a database by the competent authorities of their country of origin. After this registration, it will become a registered exporter. Information on the registered exporter's data is published on the EU REX website, where the validity of the registration of registered exporters submitting a statement on origin can be verified. On the other hand, for shipments with a value of less than 6,000 euros, the statement on origin can be made without the obligation of registration. What is tariff? It's a system of taxes and tariffs applied to exports to European Union member countries. Up-to-date information on tariffs or on restrictions, common customs tariff, applied to products exported to EU countries can be used and obtained entering the product's tariff code. It is also possible to search the tariff code on site and the country of the origin. It broadcasts in 19 different languages. You can use a link to reach the European Union tariff webpage. When you log into the tariff webpage, you can access the information you want to buy following these steps. Goods code. Enter the 8-digit GTIP code of the product you want to display the customs duty rate. If you don't know the GTIP code, you can learn it by clicking Browse. Origin/destination. Select the country to export to. By clicking to Retrieve Measures button, you can view the tax rate applied to the product and country you selected. Origin of goods. Goods wholly obtained or produced in a country originating in that country. According to the provisions of international and bilateral agreements, if a reduced tariff is desired based on the certificate of origin, it is obligatory to submit a certificate of origin stating that the goods originate in the country that is a party to the agreement or that it should be considered as such due to the changes and transactions in that country. The form and content of the certificates of origin are determined by regulation, taking into account international regulations. In case of serious doubt, despite the presentation of certificate of origin, the Customs Administration are authorized to request additional evidence. Documentation will be discussed in detail in the next slides. Customs value. The customs value of the imported goods. It is the value of the goods that will form the basis for the calculation of the customs duty according to the ad valorem system over the imported goods. The customs value is mainly shaped by the declaration of the value within the scope of the customs declaration given to the customs administration by the buyer or the importer as a result of the physical movement, the goods subject to the international trade from one country to another. DGO 2009A. 5. The amount of ad valorem tax for the goods subject to a certain import transaction is determined by multiplying the customs value of the imported goods with the tax rate. In this context, the customs tax rate and the customs value of the goods are the main factors that determine the amount of customs duty to be paid. The export declaration provides the necessary information about the goods itself and its transportation. Includes origin of goods, country of destination, goods codes, customs procedures codes, and the value of goods. The fields to be filled on the customs declarations are as follows. 1. Sender, exporter. 2. Buyer, importer. 3. Financial advisor, independent accountant. 4. Declarant representative. 5. Export. 6. Country of origin. 7. Country of destination. 8. Identity of the vehicle at the exit and the country in which it is registered. 9. Delivery method. 10. Identity of the moving vehicle to the cross-border and the country of registration. 11. Currency and total invoice cost. 12. Mode of transport at the border. 13. Installation location. 14. Customs office of exit. 15. Description of containers and articles. 16. Gross weight kilogram. 17. Net weight. When filling out the customs declaration, care should be taken not to make any scrapping or erasure on it and not to change the type, quality, and the prices of the declared product after the registration of the declaration. You can file a customs declaration yourself, or it can be done by a service provider who is your customs representative. If you use a freight forwarder or customs broker, they can act on your behalf. After the export declaration is submitted and the goods are submitted to the export customs office, there are differences in practice for the EU member states and Turkey. For the EU member country, the goods are presented at the customs office of exit and the master reference number, MRN, of the export declaration is specified. Then, the release for exit is done. The export declaration is submitted using the electronic system of the customs administration. In general, you must submit your export declarations to the customs office responsible for where your country is located, or as the case may be, to the customs office where your goods are packed or locked for export outside the EU. After the submission of the export declaration, there are 3 possible situations. Based on the export declaration you sent, your goods may be released for export, or your goods may be selected for a document check and you may be asked to present other documents before your goods are cleared through customs, or your export can be selected for a document as well as physical control. If export is to be made from Turkey, the declaration is sent to the registry and the line number is learned. The control type of the statement and the control officer are determined by the computer system according to risk criteria. The controls are made in 4 different ways in 4 different colors. The red line is the line where the document control is made along with the inspection of the goods. The yellow line is the line where the correctness of the declaration and other documents belonging to the goods is checked without the need for inspection. The blue line is the line where persons with the status of approved person determined by the ministry can benefit from export, where the goods are not subject to document control or inspection before the completion of the exit procedures. The green line is the line where the goods are not subject to document control or inspection. Afterwards, the documents should be sent to the Exporters Union and the fee should be paid per the field customs declaration. A certain amount of your export amount is paid to the Exporter Union. A crypto number is given in return for the fee paid. Once your goods arrive in the country of destination, local import requirements and the processes will apply to your export. You have to agree with the buyer which documents should be prepared by the exporter and which by the buyer as the importer, who is usually responsible for customs. The roles and responsibilities of the exporter and importer are defined by the contextual agreement, which must be carefully negotiated in this regard. The documents that may be requested by the competent authorities in the country of destination are commercial invoice, with special requirements regarding form and content. Invoice must be issued in order to complete and record export process. Export transactions in Turkey should be recorded via the e-invoice system. The invoice should be issued in a way that includes the same information as the pro forma invoice. It can be edited only in the local language or can be edited in English. The invoice is subject to official follow-up and must be financed. This document is also among the documents submitted to the customs. Packing list. Important licenses for certain goods. Certificates showing that your product complies with mandatory product regulations such as health and safety requirements, labeling and packaging. Proof of preferential origin, for example, EUR1, EUR-MAD, origin declaration and statement on origin. Provided there is a preferential trade agreement between the EU and the destination country, your products comply with the relevant rules of origin. Certificate of origin, proving the non-preferential origin of your product. A non-preferential certificate of origin may be required if import restrictions on certain products from certain countries, trade defense measures, or special imports are followed. However, the importer may also request this document for his own purposes. Certificates of origin are usually issued by your local chamber of commerce. In some countries, this responsibility may also be given ministries or customs authorities. However, depending on the means of transport, additional documents typically need to be completed and presented to the customs authorities of the destination country before the goods can be cleared. These documents are Bill of Lading, Shipping, FIATA Bill of Lading, Combined Transport, CMR, Road Transport, Airway Bill, AWB, CIM Certificate, Railway Transport, ATA Carnet, all kinds of transport, TIR Carnet, combined road and other transport. More detailed information on these documents is presented in the slides that follow.